Solar 3.0 has opened up a world of build potential with our Guardians, but this one today I want to showcase could be the best one yet if you want to jump into endgame activities. This combination of mods, exotic armour and Solar 3.0 aspects and fragments makes you pretty much unkillable, which is in turn going to make endgame activities like Nightfalls, dungeons and raids much easier. Well, today I'm going to go through all of the components of this Warlock PvE build so you can get to that endgame loot really easily and quickly. Well, if you're new around here and find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. And roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games aren't subscribed, so subscribe today and never miss an update. Well, this build is centered around a couple of elements, primarily the Stag exotic helmet and the classy restoration mod. Now, this combination is going to make us very, very hard to kill, and then we're going to be using our elements of our Solar 3.0 kit, specifically Scorch, to help us regain our class ability nice and fast, plus boost our restoration and also resilience. Well, Scorch is a damage over time debuff, and you can apply that to enemies with solar abilities like grenades, melee, super, and some weapons and perks. Enemies can be scorched by solar damage and then it stacks, and enemies take damage over time. Then we combine this with a few aspects and fragments in Solar 3.0, and we're going to be able to recharge our class ability nice and fast, as well as have longer lasting restoration effects. All added up, this is going to make us nearly unkillable, plus when paired with the Stag healing rifts and Well of Radiance, basically it's going to be near impossible to die. Classy restoration is key to the build, and to get that you're going to need to open that on your artifact, and that happens roughly in the mid-30s of the season pass. But if you haven't got there yet, make sure you do seasonal challenges plus loads of bounties as well. Once you get this mod, it's going to completely change the way you play in Season of the Haunted, so this one's going to be the season to do solo activities like dungeons, plus you're going to be able to easily get through Grandmaster Nightfalls and other endgame activities. Okay, without further delay, let's dive right into the build, and first of all we're going to have a look at our Solar 3.0 setup. For my super, I'm using the Well of Radiance. For my class ability, I'm using Healing Rift. For my melee, I'm using Incinerator Snap. And for my grenade, I'm using the Firebolt Grenade. Well, let's look at the aspects next. So Touch of Flame, your healing solar Firebolt and Fusion Grenades have enhanced functionality. So we're going to be using Firebolt Grenades, so let's have a look at that one specifically. So Firebolt Grenade increases target search radius and count. So that's going to be really, really useful. Plus it applies Scorch as well. Now I'm going to use Icarus Dash, so dodge quickly while airborne. And this is really, really useful for getting out of a tight spot quickly, which you do need to do in endgame activities. Well, next up, let's have a look at the fragments. I'm using Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when scorched targets. I'm using Ember of Searing, so you defeat scorched targets to grant melee energy, but you get a plus 10 resilience stat. Then I'm using Ember of Solace, so radiant and restoration effects applied to you have an increased duration. And then Ember of Ashes, you apply more scorched stacks to targets. So with our Solar 3.0 setup, we're going to be using our abilities to scorch targets. For example, our grenade and our melee abilities, they're really, really going to help. Then through our fragments, we're going to be using Scorch to regen our class ability nice and fast and quickly through Ember of Singeing. Ember of Searing, on the other hand, is going to give us that plus 10 to resilience. That's going to help us get near 100, which is going to give us a 40% damage resistance. And then Ember of Solace is great too, given our restoration effects last longer. Well, next up, let's have a look at the exotic armour. So the Stag is an unmistakable exotic Warlock helmet. So looking at the perks, we've got Dearly Departed, and your Rift provides damage reduction to allied guardians standing in it, and grants Rift energy when you're critically wounded, and on your death creates a healing Rift on your corpse. Then you've got the Plasteel Reinforcement mod, that increases the resilience. The Stag was already good, but when paired with classy restoration, this is the key to making yourself near unkillable. Dearly Departed provides damage reduction, and then also gives you big chunks of class ability energy back when you are critically wounded. And this is going to come in clutch when you're facing hundreds of smaller enemies, or when you're battling a boss. Well, next up, let's have a look at the weapons. So the weapons are really up to you. Now, I'm using weapons that are going to bolster my healing through the perk Vanguard Vindication, where final blows grant health. Also, I'm using an exotic weapon to scorch enemies which in turn is going to restore my class energy faster, allowing me to use my class ability much more. So let's have a look at the weapons then. In my kinetic slot, I'm using Duty Bound. This one is a legendary kinetic auto rifle with an adaptive frame. You can get this one from Nightfall activities this season, and it's got some really useful origin traits. So stunning a recovery, stunning a champion partially refills the magazine, triggers health regeneration, improves recovery for a short duration. So that's really good if you're going into Nightfalls. And then you've got Vanguard Vindication, so final blows of the weapon grant a small amount of health. So that is pretty much good anywhere. In the energy slot, I'm using Skyburner's Oath, although you can switch this out for Jotun if you have the catalyst. But I'm using Skyburner's Oath here, as that is a little bit easier to spread that scorch around. This one is an exotic energy scout rifle. So this one comes with the perk Slug Rifle, so the weapon lobs explosive slugs. When you're aiming down sights, these slugs travel faster and straight. When you're firing from the hip, the explosion is larger and applies scorch to targets. Then you got for the Empire, so the weapon is full auto and does extra damage to Cabal and penetrates phalanx shields. This one has seen a full rework this season, has been retrofitted for Solar 3.0, so as I said before, it helps us spread scorch around, and that is really going to help us out. Finally then, in the power slot, I'm using Chain of Command. This is the ritual weapon from Season of the Haunted and comes with a good selection of perks. We've got Adrenaline Junkie, Demolitionist, Osmosis, and Adaptive Munitions. I'm using Osmosis and Adaptive Munitions. So with Osmosis, using your grenade ability changes the weapon's damage type to match your subclass until you stow it. So basically, you can turn this into a solar weapon. Then you've got Adaptive Munitions. So this weapon adapts its damage output and effectiveness against energy shields that don't match the weapon's damage type. Again, really useful in Nightfall content. Finally then, let's have a look at the mods. I'm using a couple of variations of mods here in combination. Some for resilience and restoration, elemental well mods for damage and health, plus I'm using champion mods for endgame content. You can swap out the weapons for ones that work for you with the champion mods in the future. So first of all, let's have a look at the resilience and the restoration mods. So I'm using classy restoration, so activating your solar class abilities grant you restoration, and then I'm using resilience mods all over my armor here to try and get up to 100, or at least as high as possible. And I think I got to about 90 or 95 on my build here in the video, but ideally you want to get up there to 100%, and that will give you a 40% damage reduction. Then I'm using elemental well mods, so elemental ordnance times 2, defeating a combatant with a grenade spawns an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type. I'm using bountiful well, so elemental well mods cause you to spawn elemental wells that can now stack, spawning additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. That's why I'm using 2 elemental ordnance mods. I'm using Font of Might, basically you get a boost to your damage, and then I'm using Well of Life, so picking up a solar elemental well grants increased regeneration for a short period of time, and that's going to work well into the healing of this build. I'm using champion mods as well, so the Overload Auto Rifle and SMG, that just so happens this week on the Nightfalls Overload Champions, so uninterrupted fire from your equipped auto rifle and submachine gun grants bullets that can stun combatants. Basically, that is why I'm using Duty Bound. And also, we've got Unstoppable Scout Rifle, and that one goes really well with Skyburner's Oath. Well, let me know in the comments what you think of the build. I'd love to hear what you think. Also, if you've got any improvements, let me know down there in the comments and share with the community. Well, that is it for this guide for a near unkillable Warlock PvE build with the Stag and Solar 3.0. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.